The Art of the Pivot is brought to you by Signavio.
Hello there and welcome to Art of the Pivot. I'm your host, Mark Jeffries, and today we are joined by Luka Mucic, Chief Financial Officer and member of the Executive Board of SAP, the world's #1 cloud business software company. SAP's solutions help businesses innovate, transform, and manage their business operations and customer relations. As the company's Chief Financial Officer, Luka is responsible for global finance and administration, investor relations, and data protection and privacy. And besides his role as CFO, Luka oversees SAP's sustainability efforts. In addition, Luka also leads SAP's Business Process Intelligence business unit, bringing together the company's experience helping customers understand and improve their business processes with data and intelligence. All right, that's a lot going on. Luka, welcome. Where do we find you today?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark, and thanks for having me on the show. Indeed, you're finding me today in my hometown in Walldorf, where also SAP's headquarters is. Now, probably Walldorf will not be familiar to you. It's a small town, about 15,000 people, around 60 miles south of Frankfurt. And there's not too many special things about Walldorf, except for two, perhaps. We have some of the finest white asparagus in the world. I actually just had some for lunch. And secondly, we also raise some of... It's the season, absolutely. And we also happen to raise some of the finest enterprises and entrepreneurs in the world. 250 years ago, actually, Walldorf was the birthplace of John Jacob Astor, who then immigrated to the US and became the richest man in America, actually, by fur trading with the Indians. He founded Astoria in Oregon. And then from the money that he got, he bought almost the entirety of Manhattan's real estate. So the Hotel Walldorf Astoria is, for example, originating from him. And secondly, obviously, we brought up SAP here 50 years ago by 5 former IBM colleagues. And that has certainly been Germany's most successful startup story after World War II. So we're excited about that. I'm often told why in a town that is only living on asparagus a tech company could emerge. But it's because we have many large customers around. It's an economic powerhouse here in the region. We have BASF, we have Daimler, Bosch, and other large companies around. And so our founders were able to co-innovate with them early on during SAP's history. And that made it successful in the end. So a bit more than asparagus to raise over here.
My goodness. Yeah, I was actually in your neighborhood a couple of years ago and tried the asparagus. It was astounding. But clearly there's something in your water because an enormous amount of very successful history. It's fantastic. And of course, you are CFO for, well, it's a $30 billion and rising global company. Really broad and diverse responsibility. You know, in the introduction, as I'm actually saying the words, I'm thinking, how does this person have any time? So you lead corporate finance, data security, oversee the company's sustainability initiatives. So my question is, with so much going on, how do you actually define your role as CFO?
For me, but I think that is not exclusive to SAP or to my role. I think CFOs have certainly in the last 10, 20 years raised their profile overall. I consider my role the one of, let's say, a navigator on a big ship, right? There is a captain, the CEO, who defines the strategy for the ship. But then he has to rely on a navigator to chart a safe passage to get to the target, to meet the objectives and fulfill the strategy. And that's all about the role of a CFO as I see it. We clearly have our traditional stewardship responsibilities, making sure that the money is spent wisely, that we are acting in a compliant fashion, that we support as a business partner our business units in having access to capital that they need to drive their own individual business strategies. And also to drive the transformation, which is obviously getting more and more important as kind of volatility and uncertainty in the global economy is mounting. That this is pushed forward. And I think in the current situation, even before the pandemic, but even further accentuated during the pandemic, it's very evident that CFOs have to bring a lot to the table, both in terms of driving business continuity. A lot of our processes in finance in order to cash, for example, are really keeping the companies alive. And we have to make sure that they're running in a resilient and efficient and agile fashion. We have to ensure liquidity so that we can actually continue to meet our obligations. But we also have to, work on opportunities, in particular during uncertain times, identifying those critical pieces on which you have to focus and then really doubling down and being bold and investing into them rather than leaning backwards and anticipating the crisis with being afraid, I think is very, very important. And CFOs have a critical role to play to identify those critical areas of investment. And then finally, as you pointed out, I'm responsible for sustainability at SAP, and that to me is really becoming essential. You have to have a long-term orientation towards holistic steering of a company, bringing together the key financial performance but also non-financial performance metrics in order to make sure that you have proper functioning ecosystems and networks, that you give back to society and therefore have also a right sometimes to ask from society. And of course also have your contribution towards solving probably the most mounting challenge that we are facing as mankind, which is obviously the environmental and climate change challenge. So from that perspective, it's quite a mouthful of work and responsibilities. But after all, it comes all back to ensuring that the company is running a tight but also a directionally well-targeted ship. And that's what I'm trying my best to do.
Very much so. A lot of balancing going on, but it's a well-oiled machine. And you're very public with a promise which is all about helping your customers run at their best by supporting them to become an intelligent enterprise. And of course, it's an ambitious promise, it's bold, and you've already used this word bold. That seems to signify so much of what SAP is about. But do me a favor, could you define what is, from SAP's perspective, an intelligent enterprise?
Yeah, I think that's the bold part of the statement, enabling our customers to become intelligent enterprise. I would say probably every software vendor would argue that they're helping their customers to run at their best by improving customer experience or becoming efficient internally. But the intelligent enterprise notion is an extremely important one on which we believe we have very differentiated capabilities. So what characterizes an intelligent enterprise? First of all, for me, it's the embodiment of an agile enterprise, an enterprise that is able actually to swiftly change and adapt end-to-end business processes across organizational silos and bringing those together in a rapid fashion in the wake of new business models and therefore the need to change their business process landscapes. It's an enterprise that is steered based on intelligent data insights and empathy, which is not a contradiction in itself at all. I think it's the embodiment of an enterprise that has access to vast amounts of internal performance data, but also softer external data sources like sentiment data from customers, their experiences, and is then able to rationalize these insights into action, into continuous transformation. It's a connected enterprise as well. Today's companies are not operating in a silo. They have extended supply chains that they have to interact with. And it's an enterprise that is taking care of all stakeholders, including their employees, which are a critical source, helping them to develop, drive to their best performance, nurture their talents, and many other aspects. And from SAP's perspective, we have indeed a portfolio of solutions and perhaps even more important, business process knowledge and capabilities that can help customers and companies to move into this direction. Because we have a modular suite of enterprise business process applications that is unmatched and is integrated and allows customers to really run these agile end-to-end business processes in the cloud. On top of it, we provide business networks, allowing them to extend across their four walls to their suppliers, to their logistics partners, and other constituents. We have sustainability management solutions that allow them to really gain insights about their carbon performance, their contribution to the circular economy. And we have business technology platform solutions that allow them to harness mass amounts of data for intelligent insights. And on top of that, we provide the market-leading experience management solution called Qualtrics, which allows them to get access to all of the sentiment data outside the four walls as well. And that is actually our vision. And we have plenty of customer examples where we actually bring this vision to life. Think about Vodafone, for example, one of our largest customers in the telco industry, which is an industry that is dependent on mass, data processing, and they had challenges to really get value out of the data that they had in their mass customized systems. And we were working with them, bringing them on our new end-to-end business suite in the cloud with S4HANA as a flagship solution, our ERP next generation architecture. And now they have really real-time access to all of this data that they can use for faster decision-making, faster financial close, and also better user experience from an employee net promoter score perspective. It's those types of examples that kind of embolden us to also make that statement that we can help customers become intelligent enterprises.
It is a very deep, very broad offering, but it's a journey, isn't it? And I know SAP is also on that journey to becoming this fully intelligent enterprise. But I would have to say, normally a journey you'd imagine has a destination, but this is really a journey without an end because businesses continue to face new challenges. The pandemic was just one. And so I imagine that this is more of a discipline than a journey. How far would you agree with that?
I fully agree with you. I mean, if you just take a point-driven view and you take a look at SAP today, let's say after the first quarter, yes, we are on a march and we had a very successful start to the year, a very busy one as well. I mean, I'm now for the 29th quarter in my role as the group CFO. And it was the most successful quarter that I ever had the privilege to talk to the markets about the results. But it was also filled with tremendous transformational steps, like we introduced Rise with SAP, which is a holistic business transformation as a service offering for our customers to take them from their legacy ERP landscapes to a modern cloud-based architecture. We announced the IPO of our subsidiary Qualtrics, which we bought 2 years ago for 8 billion, and actually it came to the market at around about 18 billion, which was very successful. We announced an acquisition, which is strategically very important to us, of Signavio, and then had the business results. But let's be clear, this all, from my perspective, goes back to some pivotal steps that we had to take and were gladly taking last year in 2020 during the pandemic. Again, coming back to the point of leaning into the crisis, we were affected by COVID. Our classic license business went down by more than 30%, actually.
Wow.
We saw that our cloud businesses did very well, except for one, which is Concur, which is a cloud T&E software for obvious reasons, given the travel lockdowns that happened all around the world. And so we had to decide, are we becoming bold or do we just try to muddle through? And we decided to become bold. We announced that we will accelerate our business model transformation to the cloud. We will invest heavily into this, into our cloud infrastructure, into R&D in order to develop new offerings for industry cloud solutions and many other areas. And we had to inform the market that this business model transformation comes at a cost at the beginning due to reduced profitability, but will actually yield a higher price at the end due to higher growth rates and a more resilient business model. That was tough, and we were certainly suffering in terms of a short-term share price drop when we announced this, but it has set us up certainly for the successes that we are seeing now and for the confidence that we have in the future. And it's therefore indeed a race without a finishing line. Across your corporate existence, you will always face those either externally introduced or internally necessary pivotal moments in which you need to decide, am I playing defense or am I playing offense? And I think history has proven in our industry, at least, is if you go into the offense, you can actually translate a crisis into an opportunity, and we have every intention to follow through on that.
You're so right. So many organizations that they sheltered from the crisis and others leaned into it. and now we can see the results. Moving on somewhat, business process intelligence. This is something that obviously takes up a lot of your time, BPI. I think it's very important for people to understand what it means, what it represents. Could you tell us a little bit more on why SAP is investing so heavily?
It's for me one of the most exciting opportunities that I've ever witnessed at SAP, and I've just celebrated my 25th anniversary with the company, so I passionately raised my hand when we discussed in the board who should lead this initiative from a board sponsorship perspective. It is, to me, at the end of the day, one of the most critical answers to our statement that we can help companies become intelligent enterprises. Because for an intelligent enterprise transformation, yes, you need systems, you need data, you need, of course, also people that are owning and driving the transformation. But at the end of the day, it all has to come together in intelligent business processes. If you only lift a system from, let's say, on-premise to the cloud, you have not done a business transformation. You have just changed the location of your software. If you put all of your data together in a data lake, but you're not really connecting it with new business capabilities, then the value will also be quite limited. So what we want to offer with business process intelligence is actually a holistic process management and process transformation suite that allows customers to transparently design and model new business process designs and then roll them out to the process expert communities in their respective companies and govern the adoption of those process changes. And then you need to have a constant ability to challenge and benchmark the actual process execution against your design, but also external best practices. And we are providing capabilities that allow customers to do exactly that benchmarking, to get also into the weeds of the processes through process mining or user behavior mining, and to see what's really going on, whether the organization is actually living up to the process designs. And then, very importantly, through integration to process automation capabilities, like, for example, robotic process automation or low-code, no-code capabilities, to actually change and overcome the process inefficiencies through better automation. So to give you one example, if you have designed an order to invoice process where you say whenever you send out an invoice to a customer, there should be a purchase order attached to it so that the customer can immediately match that this is subject to a valid PO. But if the users find this very cumbersome because it's very manual to attach it to the invoice, you might see that your collected cash is actually going down. And then you have to find out, why is that? Is there a discrepancy between the process design and the execution? And when you find that out through process mining or user behavior mining, then you can deploy a bot automatically that actually does this manual work that the users don't seemingly want to do, just automatically as an automatic feature. And that way you can improve the processes and bring your process KPIs back to where they are supposed to do. And that's the promise that we have with BPI. And that's why it's so essential as a component of our intelligent enterprise strategy.
What do you say to organizations who may or may not be SAP customers who go, oh, I don't need BPI. I'm not big enough. I just don't have enough going on for BPI.
Well, the good news is that you don't need to be an SAP customer to benefit from BPI. BPI in a lot of its capabilities is agnostic. If you design a business process, for example, then in the first step, it's actually not dependent on a specific business system underneath it. Our recent acquisition, Signavio, for example, which offers many of those capabilities that I've just talked about as part of our business process management suite, has had, prior to the acquisition, a majority of their revenues, of their business in process mining, for example, in spaces that were not SAP-centric, but also had to do sometimes with custom-built solutions. So BPIs for companies of all sizes and certainly also for non-SAP systems. Yes, there are certain features that optimally play out if you have an SAP system running underneath. For example, we have a vast benchmarking database as part of BPI, which allows customers to benchmark their process effectiveness against best-in-class KPIs and receive recommendations on which functions of an SAP system they should switch on or configure in a different different way in order to optimally influence their business process KPIs. That obviously then requires an SAP system underneath it to benefit from the recommendations. But those are only pieces of the offering, and the main part on process design and modeling and also mining is totally agnostic. So that is not a valid argument to not take a look.
I get the message loud and clear. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. All right, our time is almost up, but I've got something else I wanted to talk to you about. Every year, SAP hosts some very large global events, and I'm pretty sure one's coming up in June, Sapphire Now. What is Sapphire Now, and when does it take place? And are you in person or virtual?
Yeah, it's this year it's obviously a virtual event. It was virtual already last year. Under normal circumstances, Sapphire Now is our largest global annual user and customer conference. So it usually takes place in Orlando in Florida. We usually have 25,000 on-site visitors, and then of course a large number of people joining virtually. The last 2 years it has been entirely virtual. The benefit of that is that actually your reach even further amplifies. So we had a significant 6-digit number of viewers last year, and we expect certainly at a minimum the same in 2021. So how will it take place? It starts on June the 2nd with some opening keynotes from our CEO, Christian Klein, and then an inspirational visionary session with our founder, Hasso Plattner, which always kind of is the highlight of Sapphire, talking about the next generation of technology and innovation. And actually, I'm proud to say that I have the strong expectation that BPI will be part of this session of Hasso as well there. And then we have 2.5 weeks of programs that is split into regional programs so that it's better possible to view it from the Americas, Europe, and Asia. It's split into 8 streams for finance, HR, customer relationship professionals, supply chain professionals, and so on and so forth, where we really give a lot of customer best practice examples, demos of upcoming functionalities. A lot of product announcements and partnership announcements are taking place. We also will host a Capital Markets Day as part of Sapphire Now. So a really broad offering. I'm glad that we will have great news to share also around BPI, including new partnerships, new product-centric announcements, and also attractive offerings for our customers. So I can only encourage everybody to listen in. But I have to say, after 2 years of not only for Sapphire Now, but for everything else, purely virtual work, I'm also looking forward next year, May or June, to be back in Orlando and benefit from some of the warm weather over there and meet some customers in person.
That would be so nice. And how lovely that BPI is clearly going to be a headline this year, and I suspect next year as well. But yes, oh my goodness, we're all looking forward to in person again. All right, last question. Our time is up. What is next for you and SAP? Anything on the horizon you can give us a little sneak peek about?
Yeah, look, we defined our pivotal moment in 2020, as I said. We really completely overhauled our strategy. 2021 is certainly a year of execution against this strategy. We announced some important steps as part of it. For example, we have just announced the formation of a joint venture entity to be fully dedicated on the financial services industry called Pioneer. Obviously, we are working through now to achieve the go live of this entity, subject to antitrust approvals and everything else that needs to happen there. So we are focused on this. Otherwise, it's really largely execution of our strategy. Of course, we're always watching out for the next wave of technological disruption, Horizon 3-based innovation. So we're looking into new areas like quantum computing and so on, but that's a little bit further out. And for me personally, well, I have to say I'm looking forward to my first vacation in more than a year. Knock on wood. If the COVID situation allows it, I plan to spend a couple of days in Italy and then in my second home in Croatia, where my father came from many years ago. to Germany. And afterwards, I really want to make sure that BPI is a breakthrough success in 2021. We have the ambition as of next year to really make it a mainstream component of all of our solution areas, not only ERP, but also procurement, HR, and the other solution areas. So there's a ton of engineering work going on to achieve that and continued integration. And if we achieve that, come the beginning of next year, we can set our sights on the next endeavors. But for now, we're heads down and looking to execute and close a very strong year for SAP.
So much to do. Luka, thank you very much indeed for not only your story, but great insights into SAP, into the world of what SAP offers. And also, thanks for all the asparagus. We appreciate it. Dankeschön.
The Art of the Pivot is brought to you by Signavio.